Alright, welcome to my Minecart station tutorial series, updated for 1.6, and the new powered rails. In this video series, we will be building all the components featured in this station. Now, I'll go ahead and say we will not be building an exact duplicate of the station here. I know a lot of people have asked me for sort of an in-building construction video, but frankly, I just don't see how to do that in a way that's going to be very entertaining to watch. So what we'll do instead is take a look at all the components that we have in this station, and from there go and build them in a test world I have, and kind of take an in-depth look at all the individual components. And then once you understand how to build them, it shouldn't be too hard to implement them in your own station. So for the first thing we have here is a departure zone that always keeps a cart waiting for us. And as soon as we hop into the cart, we can get a kind of a nudge here to get started, and then off we go down the track. So for now, I just have this looping back on itself. So here we are coming back into the station, into the arrival zone. And so as soon as we arrive in the station, we enter this little circuit we have here, that basically it will detect whether or not a passenger is still in the cart and put them into sort of a holding pattern. So you can see we just loop right back around to the same arrival point. But as soon as we get out of the cart, the next time it makes its pass, it will be able to sort the empty carts and send them back off to our Pez dispenser, which is right here. And the Pez dispenser will basically hold unused carts and automatically refill our departure zone up here. So you can see we now have a cart waiting for us up here again. Now, one thing I'll point out about the arrival zone here is it's not quite what we had feature-wise prior to the booster nerf and using stone and wooden pressure plates to detect the moment that the passenger got out of the cart. But with the current power rails and minecart mechanics, I think this is probably about the best we can do. Maybe somebody else can figure out something better. But this works pretty well for what we have. So now for the remainder of this video, I'm going to kind of spend some time talking about the differences of powered rails and detector rails, and kind of what we need to know to implement them into a station. So if you're already pretty well caught up on powered rails and detector rails, you may just want to go ahead and skip to the second part of this series, and I'll have a link for that. So let's swap over to my test world. Alright, and here we have a couple little setups where we can kind of take a look at various features of the powered rails. You see here's a powered rail. It's gold and has some lights that light up when you supply it power, so you can tell when it's in a powered state or an unpowered state. Now in the powered state, it will boost a minecart that is traveling along the track. It'll just nudge it in the direction of travel. So here, if we have a cart that's going pretty slowly, you'll see it gets a boost and then zooms off pretty quickly as soon as it passes over the rail. And it will work in either direction, so there it goes the other way. But when it's unpowered, it will stop a traveling minecart, so it just stops dead right on top of the powered rail. Now, one thing I do want to point out about this is if we have a minecart that's on a powered rail on a flat surface like this, and then we supply that rail with power, you can see it doesn't go anywhere. It's not going to travel either way down the track, and the reason for that is because the game doesn't really know which direction down the track you want to travel, so instead it just waits for kind of a nudge in one direction or the other, just like that. Now, there are a few ways we can kind of get around that. If we want to start our minecart from a complete standstill, one way to do it is on a sloped track like this. So here we have a minecart on a slope, and then as soon as I supply this with power, it will propel the cart down the slope. And it's important to note that it is actually faster than what gravity would do alone. So the reason that this works and will actually send the cart down the slope when we supply the rails with power is because gravity will start the cart rolling, and then as soon as that cart has a direction of travel, the booster rails will propel it down the rail. Another way to do it is if we have a setup like this, where we have a block immediately adjacent to a powered rail. As soon as we supply that rail with power, it will shoot the cart down the track, because in this case there's only one possible direction of travel. So a couple other things I want to point out here is booster rails are additive. The more rails you have, the faster your cart and the farther your cart will go, up to a certain limit. And so here we have just one. We can see how far this cart goes. It makes it about to the end of the track, we'll say right there, before it starts losing speed. But if we come over here and we have two powered rails, then you can see it will travel much faster and ultimately much farther than what a single rail alone will do. Now, one thing I'll say is Minecraft Wiki has some particular stats on exactly how far a cart will travel based on one rail or multiple rails. And it also has some sort of ideal placement of powered rails to keep your carts traveling at near max speed. Unfortunately, those numbers have changed since 1.6 came out, so I'm not sure if the data is updated. So rather than telling you incorrect information, I will just direct you to the wiki to kind of see the updated stuff. Now, another thing that's important for us is carts that are unoccupied will travel a certain distance before they lose speed. Again, we'll say it's about there. But if we have an occupied cart, just like boosters, occupied carts will travel farther and faster than unoccupied carts. So when we were riding in the cart, it made it pretty easily off the end of the track here without losing much momentum. So the final thing I want to show you before it gets dark here is the new detector rails. And basically the detector rails just say whenever a minecart passes over it, it will supply power to a redstone circuit. So there we have a cart going over. You can see it turned out our light. But importantly, there is no difference between an unoccupied cart like this and a cart with a rider in it. So you can see it does the exact same thing. So that is kind of one limitation that we will need to take into account in our station. And we will get started with all of these things in the next video, but make sure you kind of understand how powered rails and detector rails work. So you may want to go kind of build some little test tracks to sort of figure things out. But in the next video, we will get started with the departure zone, so stay tuned for that.